All this time you've been overthinking every move. You retyped that text 5 times before hitting send. You picked the perfect outfit. You Googled conversation starters. You watched dating tips on YouTube at 2 a.m. And still nothing. She stopped replying. She got busy. She started acting like the same girl who used to light up when your name popped up. Barely even noticed now. Why? Because while you were polishing the outside, you forgot the only thing that matters. The vibe. And not just any vibe. The one that flips a switch in her brain. The one that haunts her after midnight. The one she can't quite name, but can't ever forget. By the end of this video, you'll know exactly how to give off that vibe, and why it makes her obsess over you without even knowing why. Here's what most guys don't get. Attraction doesn't start when you say something smooth. It doesn't start when you compliment her dress, or offer to take her out, or flash that fake confident smile. It starts before any of that. It starts with what she feels when you enter the room. Women are emotional barometers. They pick up on subtlety faster than logic. Before they process your words, they're scanning your energy. Not your height, not your jawline, not even your money, your frequency. And the vibe that makes her obsess isn't the one where you're constantly trying. It's not hyper-masculine aggression. It's not nice guy approval seeking. It's not cold indifference either. It's this grounded intensity. Not loud, not passive, still, present, controlled. Like you could explode, but you won't. Like there's a wildness under your skin, but it's tamed by choice. That's the one vibe that short-circuits her emotional logic, because it hits her deep. It makes her nervous in the best way. It activates that ancient part of her brain that says, "This man is dangerous to ignore." Let me paint the picture. You walk into a room. You don't rush. You don't scan for approval. You don't laugh too loud or try to be the center of attention. You move like gravity bends a little when you walk. Like you don't need to convince anyone of your value, because you already live in it. She sees it. She doesn't even know why she noticed you before you said a word. But something about the way you carry yourself, it holds weight. You take up space without taking from others. You look around without needing to be seen. You speak slowly. You listen intently. And when you meet her eyes, it's not a stare, it's a challenge. Not, "Do you like me?" but "Can you handle me?" That's the moment something shifts. You haven't complimented her. You haven't smiled. You haven't offered anything. But she's already leaning forward. Because you're not signaling desire. You're signaling presence. And presence? It's extinct in most men. See, most guys approach women with frantic energy. Like they're trying to close a sale. You can feel it in their eyes, searching for approval. In their laugh, too eager. In their posture, too compliant. And women don't chase compliance. They chase composure. The difference? Compliance is behavior built on fear. Composure is behavior built on power. You've got to understand this. When she feels your vibe, she's not asking, "Does he like me?" She's asking, "Why do I feel this drawn to him?" And that question becomes a loop. Because she can't quite name it. She just knows that when you're around, her stomach tightens. Her breath shallows. Her thoughts speed up. And when you're gone, the room feels thinner. That's not game. That's energetic authority. But here's the catch. You can't fake this vibe. You can't script it, copy it, or imitate it from some alpha male podcast. Because the second you try to act grounded, you've already failed. Grounded intensity doesn't come from pretending. It comes from earning. It comes from doing the work no one sees. From walking through hell without turning bitter. From being rejected without losing self-worth. From standing alone without chasing company. That vibe she feels. It's the result of pain that didn't break you. Of patience that didn't beg for payoff. Of discipline forged in silence. When you're truly grounded, women feel it before you speak. Your stillness unnerves them, not because you're cold, but because you're unreadable. And the female mind obsesses over what it can't fully decode. This is why guys who do everything right still get ghosted. Because they give her a finished product, polished, predictable, polite. There's no tension, no friction, no shadow. But the man who's calm and has fire behind his eyes, he's unforgettable. Because she senses something just beneath the surface. Like she's sitting across from a storm in a glass bottle. And she can't tell if it's going to shatter, or if it's completely under control. That's what captivates her. Not your compliments. Not your paycheck. Not your abs. Your energy. Your vibe. That masculine stillness that feels like a mountain she can't move, but wants to climb anyway. And here's where most men ruin it. They reveal too much, too soon. They crack under the silence. They feel her testing and start chasing. They try to maintain that vibe with tricks instead of truth. But this isn't about gaming women. It's about embodying a state of being. You don't fake being unbothered. You become unbothered. Because you know your worth doesn't live in her response. It lives in your direction. And when a woman meets a man who's truly on his path, with or without her, that's the moment her obsession starts. Because here's the psychological twist she won't admit out loud. She wants to orbit something bigger than herself. Not a man who makes her the mission, but a man who already has one. When your vibe says, "I'm moving forward either way," she doesn't feel ignored. She feels pulled. She feels like catching your attention would mean something, because you don't give it away like candy. And that's where the obsession is born. Not in how much you validate her, but in how clearly you don't need to. Not because you're playing hard to get, but because you are hard to get. Because your time is already spent on something bigger than her approval. And now she's wondering what that something is. Where is he going? What does he care about more than me? What kind of man doesn't flinch when I pull back? That unknown becomes irresistible. Let me give you a scenario. You're at a gathering. You're talking to a friend. Laughing. Calm. Collected. You see her walk in. She sees you. You don't rush. You don't adjust. You keep talking. She's used to being the gravity in the room. But now, for the first time, she feels like she's the one drifting. Because you didn't move. You didn't signal need. You didn't light up like a dog when the treat arrived. You just existed. Fully. And in that stillness, she starts to spiral. Not because you rejected her, but because she doesn't know where she stands with you. And that is the vibe. That's the one. Not cold. Not dismissive. Just entirely unfazed. Because your internal world is richer than anything she could give you. And now she wants in. Here's where it goes deeper. She's been chased before. She's had men flood her phone with validation. She's had guys rearrange their whole schedule for a date. She's been told she's beautiful more times than she can count. But you don't play that game. Not because you don't see her, but because you see through her. You don't just admire her looks. You clock her patterns. You notice the performance. You hear the subtext in her words. And she feels that. Not in her ears. In her nervous system. She's used to control. But now she's around a man she can't control. She's used to certainty. But you only give her presence. She tries to read you. Tries to provoke a reaction. Maybe she drops a flirty line. Mentions another guy's name. Goes a little colder, just to see if you chase. You don't flinch. You respond like a man who's seen it all before. And who's not impressed by recycled games. That unshakable frame? It disrupts her entire emotional rhythm. Because now, for the first time, she's not steering. She's reacting. And that flip, from leader to follower, from chooser to chosen, that's the shift that makes her obsess. Because you didn't win her over. You held your ground. And she stepped into your reality. But let's be brutally honest. You can't access this vibe if you're still hungry for approval. You can't hold frame if you don't know who you are without her smile. You can't be intense and grounded if you're full of internal chaos. That's why the work starts long before you even meet her. It starts in silence. In solitude. In building a life where your own opinion is the only one that moves you. Because when your validation is internal, your presence becomes magnetic. And that magnetism, it doesn't shout. It doesn't try. It doesn't flex. It simply is. It walks into a room without needing to announce itself. It doesn't try to prove status. It radiates it. You don't need her eyes to land on you. They just do. And when they do, the moment lingers longer than she expects. Because the man who isn't chasing is the man who forces her to chase herself. Think about that. She starts questioning why she wants your attention so badly. She starts wondering what it is about you that makes her nervous. And here's the truth that slices through all the noise. She's not obsessing over you. She's obsessing over who she becomes in your presence. It's not about your looks, your car, your cleverness. It's about the emotional mirror you hold up without even trying. You reflect back all the places she hasn't yet owned. All the parts of her that crave stability and fear being seen. And when you don't try to fill the space, she fills it with meaning. That's how the obsession forms. Not from what you give her, but from what you withhold. Not in a manipulative way, but in a sovereign one. Because your time, your words, your energy, they mean something. And she knows it. That's why she leans in when you speak low. That's why she remembers your silence more than another guy's jokes. That's why she's still checking your socials. Still bringing your name up. Still wondering if she ever really had you. Because maybe she never did. Maybe she only brushed against a storm that didn't need to prove its lightning. And that kind of man, she doesn't forget. And when she doesn't forget, she doesn't move on. Not fully. Sure, she might date other guys, smile for the selfies, post stories from rooftop bars or beach vacations. But behind every filtered laugh is a comparison, a whisper, a shadow of you. Because those other men, they're too available, too polished, too desperate to be chosen. They ask her what she wants for dinner. You made her feel what she was hungry for. They fill silences. You let silence speak. They flinch when she withdraws. You stay unmoved. They perform to keep her attention. You live like your attention is a luxury. Because it is. That's what she remembers. Not your jokes. Not your playlists. Not your dates. She remembers how she felt when you looked at her. Like she was being studied, not just seen. Like she was being challenged, not coddled. Like she wasn't in control and didn't want to be. That's the vibe. The one that makes her think about you in the quiet moments. At night. In traffic. When she's with someone else and suddenly realizes, he doesn't make me feel like that. And here's the brutal truth most guys avoid. You don't get that effect by chasing. You don't get it by being the good guy. You get it by becoming centered. And when a man is centered, he doesn't need to convince her. He disrupts her. She starts to feel her own chaos around your calm, her own doubt around your certainty. Her own games fall flat in the face of your clarity. And that shift, that disruption, that's what lives in her memory. Not because you tried to be unforgettable, but because you stopped needing to be remembered. And now you're untouchable. Not because you're distant, not because you're cold, but because you've become something rare. A man with emotional gravity. You pull without reaching. You affect without trying. You stay still, and she moves. It's not arrogance. It's alignment. You've lined your life up so tight with purpose, direction, and self-respect that there's no empty space for her to fill. She either fits or fades. And that's the vibe. That's what makes her obsess. It's not just how you carry yourself. It's what you carry inside. You carry peace. You carry control. You carry the ability to walk away, calmly, cleanly, completely, without resentment and without regret. And when a woman meets that kind of man, it rewires something in her. Because you didn't need her, but you could have chosen her. And that's the difference between every guy she's forgotten and the one she never will. You didn't lower yourself to be loved. You stayed rooted in who you are. And that version of you, he's the one she replays in her mind. Not because he tried to win her, but because he let her feel him once, and then disappeared back into his purpose. That silence, that absence, it echoes. And now every man who comes after has to compete with a ghost. Not a ghost who begs for closure. A ghost who left peace in his wake and power in his silence. So the next time you think about texting her, just to see if she's thinking about you, don't. Because if you've embodied this vibe, she already is.